Okay, back in Olivia's program management corner. My Kevin Hart. Okay, here's one thing that I think could be useful for anyone going into program management, especially on a new team. So this is something I'm encountering right now. And I want to give you guys some of my pro tips because I think I've switched teams more than literally anyone. And I've worked in a lot of different types of companies, more recently a startup, but I definitely started in corporate America. So, like, my first work experience was at like Intel, and I've worked at really a lot of the big companies. Look me up. Maybe I'll put a link to a bit more of my work experience. But I want to actually give some pro tips on how to join a new team and how to get acclimated, right? So one thing I've done purposely is I've joined teams with people who are a lot more senior than me. And the reason that I've done this is because when you're the dumbest person in the room, like if you're the newbie, if you're the new grad, you're the intern, everybody's smarter than you. Everyone knows a lot more than you. And so that means that you have this great opportunity to learn. And being the new person or being the intern, people are just more than willing to teach you. So you can just be a sponge and say, like, I want to learn. I am here. Now, what I have right now is like a sticky notepad. Oops, I dropped my pen. What I have right now is a sticky notepad. Don't use a sticky notepad. Actually have a notebook. And two things. The first thing, in the first week that you join, go to when you first join, your calendar is going to be so empty. It's going to be empty, right? You might have like a meeting with your manager and maybe a meeting with some other person who just sees you as like a lost puppy and they feel bad for you and they're like, meet with me, I'll try to like show you something. But take it upon yourself to be assertive and book meetings, or just ask your manager, say, hey, can I just tag along with you this week to meetings? I don't have anything to contribute, but I just want to sit in the meeting to understand what's going on. Now, this is really important. It's not for you to contribute anything, or really you're not going to learn much. Like, you're not going to soak in most of the things that you hear during the meeting, but what will happen is you'll get familiar with the company culture and really your team culture, like the way things work, who are the big shots, who are the small fish, how do people communicate, what channels do people communicate on, and how you can be most effective. So this is why I'm using this sticky notepad, but you just go in with your pen and your notebook. I wouldn't even say your laptop initially because people will think that you're emailing or Googling or Facebooking or something during the meeting. Just old-fashioned pen and paper. Become good at taking notes if you suck at it. Even if you're not like writing anything useful initially, maybe your notes are actually poor when you first start. But keep going and your notes will get better. But just write down as many things as you can, even if it's just people's names. Now this is useful because if you go into a meeting, it's your first week, you know your manager's name, and you probably, like, people introduce themselves maybe in some welcome email, but now you're seeing people's faces in those meetings. So write down their names, and then go look in your company database or whatever, and look those people up. And usually, I feel like all the companies are doing the sort of same thing now, where they have some internal database where you can, like, look up the person and what they're working on. Like, I know Microsoft and Facebook are, like, really good for that. Startups, they are still trying to get their documentation together. Like, Intel is good for that too. If you're working at a large corp, they definitely have something like this, so figure out what it is. Even if it's like Slack channels are really good for that. So larger startups like Lyft, I've heard, has something really cool like this where they utilize Slack channels like that. So go into the Slack channels and just, like, look at people's messages, look at what the channels, join as many channels as you can, honestly. Definitely all the channels that are pertinent to your work. and you like read what's going on, like read as much documentation as you can. And if you hear something in a meeting that sounds super interesting but you have no idea what's going on, just write it down and then ask the person who said the thing that's interesting. Just send them an email, a little blurb after the meeting that's like, hey, I heard you say this in the meeting, but I don't really know anything about this. Can I book some time with you for you to explain that? And they'll be like, most likely they'll just be like, yeah, and they'll just let you know like when they have time. Doing lunch with on your first week, grabbing lunch with people to talk it over is great because like everyone has to eat, and they would probably be more than willing to like either invite you to their group lunch, if they have a group lunch so you can meet other people and chat about it over that, or they might just actually give you like 30 minutes, or even if they're nice, an hour on their calendar and just chit chat with you about it all day. Another thing you could do, you could ask to shadow someone. So you could say like, "Hey, I know I heard you're working on this for the next hour. Can I just like sit down and watch you work on that, so you can see like how they're maneuvering through email and Slack and the company portal database, and how they're creating their decks and how they're pinging people to ask for things or not. You can just like see the general style of like how they're getting their work done, how they're prioritizing time." So you can understand how you want to do this for yourself as you like transition into owning your own work. So this is really short, and that's basically the gist of it. You need to you need to create a full calendar. You want to talk to as many people as you can. It's not just like hi in the hallway. When you talk to one person, like your manager, ask your manager like, who is your group admin. This is usually like some secretary woman who's probably like the EA of, if you have a senior manager, his EA or her EA. Book a meeting with that person because they know the lay of the land. Like they know everything. They own the calendar. So there's also usually like a person who they're not like an EA, but they're like the program manager of like data governance. I've heard the names of this person are kind of like blurred, but it's usually something like that. Like they own like data governance. Basically, they understand all the metadata and policy around like how to do stuff in the organization. Usually, this person's been there for like 20 or 30 years, something like that. It's usually a woman, typically a white woman. Book some time with her. Like for some reason on all my teams, I always book the meeting with that person like 3 weeks after I started, and then they give me the whole scoop, and I wish I would have booked the meeting with them like day one or week one. So pro tip, find out whoever the data governance person is on your team, book an hour with them, and have them send you all those like data governance slides, because they definitely exist and everybody else in the company has read them, but you're new and they're not going to put that in the welcome email for some reason. But you definitely need to know that, because like that is like how stuff runs. It's like the template on like how to get stuff done in that work group, really in the company. And also they probably have some sort of like governance meeting that happens weekly. Like this is like that 6 a.m. meeting on Tuesdays where everyone hates getting up and going to it, but it's on everybody's calendar and everybody has to go. You're new, so like you're not on that calendar yet, and Sharon, who's that data governance PM, owns that meeting, so you need to get her to invite you. So you need to book that meeting to Sharon so she knows who you are, so she knows to invite you. Pro tip, right? Yeah, so there's a way to find Sharon if your manager doesn't know who she is. I'm just naming the person Sharon, but it's the data governance PM, whoever that is. I don't know, at your company. Figure out who that person is. You can look in like Workplace or wherever the directory of all the employees are in your group, and look. Oh, another thing is figure out the chart. So there's like a chart of employees in your company, so you can see like, here you are, here's your manager, here's your manager's manager, here's your manager's director, here's the director of the directors, here's the CEO. Like look at the company chart breakdown, and then see where you are, figure out who all your managers are. If you can get meetings with all those people, great. If you can't, figure out if you can get into a meeting that those people are in and say like, hi, I'm blah blah blah, here's what I'm working on, just so they see your face, they know your name. They probably won't remember it unless you actually do something. notable, respectable, so that they will get to know your work and respect your work. That is an important step that the org chart, I believe that's what it's called. Yeah, so this is a very short 10-minute video, but as a new person on a team, those are some things you need to do to get started.